Hi, today I'm here to share with you the three books that really helped launch my handmade leather business. It all started back in 1977 with the $2 book. This is the book. Now, I do have to say, the lighting is not so good. There's nothing really fancy about this book. It is a $2 book. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the book, but it's fairly primitive. I mean, really, what's in it and the information it has is somewhat primitive. But why this was so important in launching my leather career, again, I had never done leather work before. I always did crafts. I found this book in the craft section. I was a college student in Boston. Barnes & Noble had opened in downtown Boston. And so I found this in the craft section. $2 was within my budget. But what intrigued me and why, because I didn't know anything about leather work, was that in the back here, it mentioned a couple companies in downtown Boston. So these were the two I started with: Siegel, which I'll talk about in just a second, and Berman. And then it also mentioned Tandy Leather, which is where the other two books that really helped launch my career came from. So the next day after I bought this book, looked through it a little bit. It was before computers, and I didn't have a computer or anything like that. So the next day I took the subway to that South Station, which was really a subway stop from where I had been, at the bookstore. And I went into the Siegel company, and Jeff Siegel, the owner of the company, sold me the materials, and I made this leather vest, which was the first leather item I ever made. I did make it reversible. I learned how to sew in home ec. But again, sewing leather is entirely different than that because you have to punch the holes ahead of time and glue and all different things. So this is the first leather item I ever made. 44 years later, I still wear it. So again, that's where the importance of this book came in, because it really helped me. And again, that didn't really help me all that much with the sewing. A little bit, yeah. Some of the things, like you use a log to bang on and special boards and things. But again, when I went to the Siegel company, they were the really ones who set me up with the first initial tools. I do have other videos that talk about that, so that's not really where I'm going with this today, because this whole month I'm really sharing videos about how I launched my belt making career and why those are still some of the most popular things I make today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jan Hibbard. My business is Log Cabin Leather by Jan. And again, I've been making handmade leather goods since 1977. So now I got this in Boston. My parents lived in the outskirts of Boston, or suburbs of Boston. And the Tandy Leather that it mentioned in here was, not very far from where my parents lived. So I borrowed my mother's car, drove there, and this is where I started buying a lot of the tools. And this is where the next two books, which were these two books, really helped me to launch my belt making career. These two books are both by a man named Paul Burnett, who really is my favorite leather carver, and so forth. So these books talked about how you make creative belt designs, how you stamp the designs and make the creative patterns. And I wish my light wasn't glaring quite so much here. That's not really any better. That again show you how to make the creative designs. Now I have a lot of videos that do again take you step by step how I create my designs. I have a bunch of those coming out this month and so forth, because I'm launching a belt line in March. So now here are some of my belts here. And so these are the tools. And you hammer the designs in. And like I said, I have other videos that talk about that. And you create all these beautiful designs, which are not showing up too good as far as the lighting goes here today. I'm not sure where I should go with that. But they are beautiful designs, and these are all done one at a time. Each of these impressions is done one tool at a time, over and over again, to make the design. So now I started with these books, but what the issue was there is a lot of the tools that were in this book that it mentioned, I did not have. But these tools, back then they were probably like $3 a piece. I started with a little 5 tool kit. And most of the tools were really made to make like floral designs. So this was a little bit different than really what a lot of leather crafters did back then, that I saw anyways. So I started buying these tools, which, were expensive. So when I saw this book and started making designs, I didn't have all the tools that the book had. So I improvised. So I started using my own tools. And of course, if they were different size, things like that, it's going to make it come out differently. But I kind of went with that. And so, again, like this design here is based on a design in this book. And each time I do it, so, a lot of times I do it a little bit differently. I change them up a little bit to make them my own and things like that. But it is a design that was in one of these books anyways. And, it showed me how to really stamp the design. So now I just create my own designs. I just pick up a tool and I start stamping it. I do have plenty of other videos on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this, you've found my YouTube channel. I really would appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up. Share this video with anybody that would you think might be interested. But I have a lot of other videos that talk about more in detail about how I actually step-by-step create the designs. So once the design is tooled, I guess my camera, gosh, my lighting is horrible here today. I usually don't film in this part of my room, but because this is where my tools are, I don't know, that's still not showing up very good on the camera, is it? These tool designs, again, first the design is stamped into the leather, hammered in, one impression at a time. So I'm trying to show you some of the ones that, but again, these designs are not showing up on this camera whatsoever. Even if I go in close, you can't see it. I'm sorry, I guess this isn't going to be too great. Once the designs are done, then the color is added. Now, the coloring techniques they talked about in these books were not things I used. So that was something I played around with, things, experimented, kind of found my own path. So I do have my own way of adding the color, whereas these are using dyes. Dyes are not very forgiving. You get a drop of dye somewhere where you don't want it, it stays. The other thing that I didn't like about the dyes is they're blotchy. Again, if it's heavier on the brush or whatever, when you put it on in one space and then you spread it, it's going to be darker in that one spot you started in. Unlike with, paint where you can spread it around. Paint did not work well either because it will chip off, things like that. So I have experimented with that and found ways that work for the coloring that I do. What I do is a dye resist so that, again, I think this one actually shows up pretty good. These areas, I see the natural colored leather. And so I've painted something on them before I've dyed it. Again, I think you can see the design on this one. I painted something on them. This one, I've painted something in here. So when I dye this belt, those spaces in there are going to come out lighter like these. And so that's what makes my belts a lot unique, different than other people. Not too many people take the time to do the detail and so forth on things like that. And how it's colored and so forth can make the belt look entirely different. So these three books really got me going, and I started creating the beautiful designs like that. There were a lot of other books about carving leather and so forth like that. And there was a man called Al Stolman, and he had a lot of books, so I bought some of those, but they never really actually, his teaching style was not something that helped me. What I found years later was another book by Paul Burnett about carving, and that one really helped to up my game on my carving and making, more dimensional and so forth like that. What I have, the book, I didn't even get it in a hardcover. It was a digital download and so forth, because now I live in New Hampshire. There are no Tandy leathers even in New Hampshire. There is one in Massachusetts, so that's about an hour and a half away. So I do go there occasionally. But the quality of the things they sell nowadays is not anything like it used to be. This is one of my original tools. Nothing wrong with it. But then some of these newer ones I buy, they are, I don't know if you can see that the candle is bent. In order to get these to stamp well it needs to be flat because you need to be hammering it straight in so the impression is equal on all sides. When the tools are cheap like that, and that's where they've gone way downhill. So keeping the older tools are actually better. And so I'm glad I did buy many of these tools long ago. I don't actually buy too many new ones. I just use the ones I have to create different designs all the time. So I do have a new line of belts that will be coming out in March. I think I have 25 or 30 different belts that are coming out. And, You just saw some of them, so that's kind of a sneak peek. I'm also making mechanics belts, and any of these can be mechanic belts. So I have another video that talks about what those are and what makes those different and better. I custom fit any belts I make, so you always get the perfectly fitting belt in the size you want. That's pretty much going to wrap it up today, because again, I was really talking about the 3 books that helped me. So again, we've got Creative Belt Stamping 1 and 2 by Paul Burnett, with my very first or second 2, and the first one was the New Book of Leather Work, Projects Before Today by Joseph Delano. And again, this came out in the early 70s, I think. There's a copy. This is an old. I don't even know the copy of it. 1974. So that is, obviously is a little bit out of date now. But again, it got me started and got me interested. Once I found leather, I never went back to anything else. It became my passion, and it always has been and always will be until I cannot do it anymore. And then it will still probably be my passion. So that's going to wrap it up for now. Once again, this is Jan Hibbard, Log Cabin Leather by Jan. If you saw this video, if you thought there was anything interesting about it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up or a comment or a share. If there's other videos you'd like to see, please leave comments. I would appreciate that as I try to help my channel grow. This is just one video in a series. Today, again, I talked about the 3 books that got me started in my leatherwork career and how they helped me to make my belt designs and so forth. And, designs that I make on other projects now, how I, came up with my own coloring designs, techniques, and so forth, and have, altered the designs to make them really my own, because I strive in making one-of-a-kind, unique things and making them all my own so that you can't find them anywhere else. And that's really what I've done. Like I said, this is the couple other videos coming out this month about belts and quality of belts and selecting belts and what a mechanic's belt is, and more about my creation process. So you can find those on YouTube. You can also find a lot of those on Facebook if you rather look at Facebook. I have most of these videos on Facebook too. My Facebook page is Log Cabin Leather by Jan. Again, as is my YouTube channel. So that's going to wrap it up for now. If you want to get on my email list, that will give you a 20% discount if you're interested in buying a leather belt or any other product that I have. If you join my email, which there is a link down in the description, you can do that. And that will give you a 20% discount off of anything you purchase. So I hope you will consider doing that. I would love to know the types of products you want me to make and find out more about the type of things you'd like. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.